Welcome to this Customer Success Leadership podcast. Today, I have the pleasure to receive Kasia Laugenie. Kasia is Director of Customer Success at Jacquard. Kasia, would you mind introducing yourself a little bit for our audience?
Catherine, thank you very much for having me. Absolutely. As a form of an intro, I have been in customer success for 13 years. Over the last 2 years in leadership at Jacquard. I've always been in SaaS, MarTech and tech, currently managing a team which involved onboarding, analytics and customer success. And I'm currently in the AI space over the last 7 years. So yeah, thank you very much for having me.
Okay, that's wonderful. You have ample experience to share wonderful insights with us, Kasia. My first questions would be for CEOs who would like to improve their customer success teams or find out, more insights about it, or for those who would like to set up a customer success team as they may not have it. So my first question would be, what kind of skills and qualities are you looking for when you recruit for a CS team?
Great question. And I think the answer will very much vary on the size of the business and the business needs at the time. When I think of recruiting for our team within customer success, I always think about what are the projects and what are the objectives for the next 12 months? And are there any, first of all, gaps within the skill set of the team? Especially with kind of scale up and growth businesses, you may be working on automated training, for instance. You may be working on scaling certain processes. And I think that will be quite an impact on kind of what kind of person you look for the role. But taking it back to kind of the key pillars that I look for when hiring is, first of all, the approach. We are in a job of problem solvers. We are in a job of constantly talking to customers. So what I look for is self-starters and real company builders. And I think that's very important for companies of high growth, because you need people to come in and not only do their job, but also challenge processes and really help you evolve how you build the org. And it takes the team to do that. And two is the character. And one of the key pillars I look for is the smile, is the personality, is the positivity. CS is all about a people job, right? We build relationships. And to do that, you really have to be a positive person. You have to build relationships. And we always do, wherever we can, always final interviews in person to see what the chemistry of that person. Can I imagine this person being in front of my enterprise customer? And the third is the skills that I talked about. And I think is looking at the unique skill set of individuals and, are there any missing gaps? And we had this example actually not too long ago. We hired somebody with an objective of building some of our online training. How can we automate some of these processes? And actually this person not only had some CS experience, but also implemented some automations and efficiencies in some of his previous roles. And that was really important for us as a team to bring into play.
Very interesting. Do you find in your experience that you have recruited more internally for your team, or has it been a 50-50%, external recruitment versus internal recruitment?
Oh, interesting. So I've come into play internally. So I've been at Jacquard for the last 7 years and I've been promoted into the role, starting with as an account director and working myself into leadership. So I came in internally. We had somebody come in internal from a different team, but vast majority have come externally. We have built, however, a new org for onboarding, and that person, because of how quickly we needed them to come on board, and also the skill set that already had from CS, internal hire was the key. So we've actually built a new org, and the priority was to go internally. So currently, at the moment, majority of ours come externally, but both of course work.
In terms of a role itself, inside the team, would you mind describing a little bit, by job title or, what kind of roles? Because I think it depends from one organization to another, depends on the size of the organization, obviously. But I think you have very good experience. So maybe you can describe us some kind of, typical roles in CS.
And the structure, yes. And And interestingly, I started in customer success in account management. And in the UK, 12 years ago, customer success was not really yet that much of a used term. And I've started in account management, which role eventually took me to key accounts manager, where I looked both at the commercials and the customer success side of the business. And I have then moved into enterprise with Jacquard, where I am now, which is pure play customer success. And the reason I say that is because we are very much pure play customer success in a very high touch environment. So we work with large to enterprise businesses, and the focus of the team in our org is very much retention, adoption, strategy. And we are structured in quite a classic setup, I would say, from a CS perspective. So we are customer success managers, senior customer success managers, and we have principals. And principals look after some of our either complex or kind of some of our larger accounts, and also support with kind of the wider team and other accounts. What's interesting with our org, the onboarding org sits within our team. Okay. So very often onboarding you'll get as a part of services team. We have launched onboarding this year. So we have onboarding that sits as a part of customer success, and also analytics. And this is not something I see very often. The way we report for customers is quite complex at times. Therefore, our analytics team, actually, majority of the work they do is to do with customer work. So we actually have analytics, onboarding, and customer success. We are actually coming up to our next financial, we're also going to bring in some sales engineering and some technical teams into similar remit, similar umbrella, because that's kind of into what would you refer to as customer experience, that whole life cycle. But in terms of pure customer success play, we are very, very traditional job titles, if you like.
Okay. It seems to me also that it's a very creative department, customer success. You have really to adapt to, what are the goals of your customers and what are the goals and the vision of the company you work for. So that can also, I think, bring very interesting interest for, leaders who want to manage those divisions. Would you agree with that?
I'd say it's a completely fluid organization. And I think, and we might touch on this later in this session, like technology is also changing the skill sets and how we work and how we evolve and how we hit our targets. And how we become more efficient, and that therefore does change some of the roles. And I 100% agree. You have to be quite creative in how you structure and mold the team with the right skill sets to hit the targets.
Yeah. Question now regarding the justification of a CS department in a company. What are the main KPIs used typically, to justify the ROI of in a customer success team? Could you describe this to us?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a crucial team, especially as they're working in SaaS, whereby people buy from people, right? Especially when you are in an enterprise sales. As much as technology will evolve, we still want to interact with people. We still want to ask the question. We still want them to support our business cases. So thinking about some of the KPIs and how you'd measure the success of a team, I think falls under 4 areas, I would say. First and foremost, it will be your retention rates, right? That is a very pure play metric that is measured for customer success. And that is either GRR, or if you have a team that is also doing upsells, you may have ARR targets. But there are more measures within that. And I think one of the key things is forecasting and predictability and accuracy of your revenue model, because churn will happen. But the last thing you want is unsuspected churn, right? The key role of the team is to really understand your book of business, understand all the risks, understand what may be happening, and also report on those trends upwards. So we need to understand, do we need to adjust something in the product and our strategy and our pricing? So I think forecasting is key to understand our customers, and there is no other team in the business that knows customer better than we do. Which leads me quite nicely into the second key, which being insights. because we spend so much time with customers, it is our responsibility to, I guess, do two things: is A, report to the business the trends we see, any kind of risks, and any also amazing stories. And two is amplify the voice of our customers within the business, like to the product team. Like, what should they be focusing on? What is the feedback of the product? What are the trends in marketing? What are the KPIs showing the customers that we should think about our storytelling for our product? I talked about retention, and I think lastly, relationships. And I talked about relationships, but the reason I also mentioned that, because now more than ever, brands buy from brands. They buy from referrals. They buy from word of mouth, right? The circles are very small within senior individuals who will talk about technologies. So things like referrals, case studies, referral calls, quotes is what comes out of good relationships. And I think that very often comes out of customer success teams.
Yeah, it's a good spectrum of KPIs. I mean, obviously the one related to insights might be difficult to, it's a bit intangible, right? Because, how do you measure that? But I believe it's a very, very important one personally. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
Now, for people who want to go into customer success, what kind of advice would you give them?
Great question. And I think the key is character. Being very adaptable, being agile and open to change, and really being a self-starter and a company builder. There are opportunities. The market is overall, in an interesting spot, but I think there are jobs out there. But I think you have to make yourself agile. And also, I think what's interesting, technologies are getting more and more complex. Therefore, being much more technical and very aware of the age of AI and advancements. Is a big benefit to a lot of CS orgs.
Typically, people in CS would come from sales, pre-sales, product management, support, maybe engineering. Do you have people coming from engineering as well?
We don't particularly in our space. We are still in quite early stage of our team. So we're still kind of a startup, scale up business. But over the years, over the last 12 years or so, I have seen people come from different backgrounds. And I think that's the diversity of the team is very important, right? And that is diversity from overall kind of people perspective, but also the skill set perspective. Because if you put too many people with the same background in the room, you give them a problem, you'll get one way of solving the problem. The more you employ people from different backgrounds and different views, you'll get a number of ways of solving the problem. So I think you just need to really understand the dynamics of your team and what they would benefit in. We've had an interesting, in our space, which happens a lot within MarTech, a lot of people come from customer side. So, and vice versa, actually. People seem to go from SaaS into customer side or agency into SaaS. So we've had a lot of our customers, and actually over the years, who are our main point of contact and come to work for us.
Wow.
Because not only then they kind of know our technology because they worked firsthand with it, but they have the brand experience. And we had also happened the other way around. We had people come into the business and then end up working at the customer side because they wanted to go to the brand side. That seems to be quite an interesting dynamic in the space in which we're in.
Oh, fascinating. I like that. What is one common misconception about customer success that you have noticed in your career so far?
I think this comes a lot, whereby very often teams will think customer success is a customer support team, or it's to throw a lot of projects at. There is a misconception that we just kind of answer questions all day rather than be strategic. And I think there is so much that customer success team does. And I like to think of us as these conductors of a train, right? And essentially, we hold the book of business. And it's incredibly important because it's so much more cost efficient to retain customers than it is required to new ones. And there's a massive value of that. But I think the misconception sometimes might be that there is a lot of projects that get thrown at a customer success team thinking that we can just do customer support, if you like. That can be a misconception. That's probably the key one I can think of.
Yeah. Now, I'd like to discuss about your role itself. What has been the most rewarding part of your job, and also the most challenging part?
Great question. So rewarding, I guess from that perspective is going into leadership, is seeing the growth of individuals. And as cliche as this may sound, is making some kind of individuals who you might have to retrain some of the work or coach, and really seeing them flourish, or making really good hires who really hit the ground running, make a huge impact, and you really see their future being really bright. And two, something that is incredibly rewarding is getting that trusted advisor status with customers. Because your customers pay money for your service, for them to really feel like you're their trusted advisor, an extension of their team, and really trust you, takes a lot of their work, takes the right approach, and really feel like some of the team with customers are their trusted advisors. And I'm often a senior stakeholder to a lot of our large accounts. It's incredibly rewarding work when you're able to very freely open and give advice to customers, and they listen to that. And from there, you then also see results and then flourish in that. And two, from a challenger's perspective, this is also a people answer. And I'll answer this from an angle of being a new leader. So I've been in this role for 2 years. And I think one of the biggest challenges that I wasn't necessarily equipped for it, or knew this was going to come, is taking over a team that's kind of inherited, right? And also across the pond, and not being able to get together at all times. So I managed a team in the States, and over here we've globalized for a period of time to standardize some of our processes, and really building a trust of a team that had change in leadership. And also in that same fashion, we have rebranded. We have also repositioned our product. So managing not only being new in leadership, managing a team who's had change, new leadership, new branding was quite a challenge, but also really rewarding once we've gone through that process. And another challenge with that in mind is doing an assessment of, do you have the right skill set within the team to support the objectives you're trying to reach? And that might require getting very comfortable with feedback, very comfortable with coaching individuals, to ensuring that if you ask yourself a question, would I hire this individual now? The answer has to be yes. And to get to that point might require a lot of work and coaching and feedback. And I think that whole process for a new manager, it's a big learning curve.
It's fantastic. I think you are very keen on mentoring professionals, right? Which is a good thing. Now a question about the product capabilities. As we know, in the world of software, we can promise things, or customers may want new things, new features, and the product management team with the product development team cannot always follow straight away, right? So there will be occasions where there is a mismatch between the customer's expectations and the product capabilities delivery, right? So how do you manage those situations yourself?
Interesting question. And I think the key is honesty and setting the right expectations with the customer. Because you should absolutely get the customers brought into the future and of your roadmap and what you're doing. But I think you should be very clear on the expectations that you're setting on the timelines, because you don't want to overpromise and under-deliver. But it'd be great if you under-promised and over-delivered, right? So I think the key actually is ensuring you know your timelines, you provide feedback to the teams. And going back to being a trusted advisor to brands, you have to be honest. You have to deliver on your KPIs. You have to deliver on the promises you have given to the brands. And also, if some priorities have changed within the product team or within your roadmap, is letting the customer know. Because at the same time, they're also, they also have changing priorities. So just really keeping a very good communication open of customers as to timelines when that happens, to make sure you've got very much an aligned intent of what you're trying to achieve and when.
Excellent. And have you developed any strategies for improving customer retention yourself? Or is it more like a day-to-day activity without really thinking about strategy?
Customer retention. So for us, it's absolutely the biggest focus, because it is, of course, so much better to retain customers while we work. Our sales cycle is quite long. We work with enterprise businesses. And one of the key things we look at is, and this is a kind of focus for the next financial year for us, is making much more data-driven decisions, like knowing what good customer looks like and what metrics does that display in their usage of the platform and their engagement of the platform, so we can make very strong data decisions, right, rather than just the gut instinct. But some of the key retention tactics, I would say, number one of them being really understand the customer's goals. And not just the goals of us together, our partnership, but the goals of what they're trying to achieve as a business. What are their priorities? And two, then understand the teams of the goals of the team that you're working with. What are their KPIs? And then the last, you then align the goals of the partnership. And once you have the good understanding of the three, you'll be able to judge if there could be a misalignment of any priorities for kind of renewals and how you fit into the picture. And not only that allows you to be really intentional in how you report, you can really do a much better storytelling of your results, how they feed back into the company's objectives, and the brand's objectives. So that's kind of from an external perspective. And I think internally is our CS team work in collaboration with account executives on their renewals. And the key is ensuring that the sales team and the customer success team are very much aligned on health, opportunity, resources we should put into each of the customers, how we should service them, who covers which stakeholders. So working with a lot of multi-stakeholder accounts, we need to make sure we've got very good coverage. So I think it's very important to do key account planning. So we have sessions within the teams for them to present to us kind of what are the risks, what are we doing about them, what are the mitigation plans. We don't wait till 2 months before the renewal to talk about the health. We have a 6 months health check-in. So we first have a full report from CS, like this is where I think the account is. Then AE will give their account of where they think the account is. We'd get together, understand what the next steps are, and then we'll go to the customer halfway through the kind of 6 months out of the contract to understand, get the sentiment check. So we try to be very methodical in the way we approach our timelines with customers to give us a lot of time and for intentional alignment.
That's an excellent strategy. Now I would like to discuss a bit teams, because customer success for me is an area where I can sense there is a lot of pressure, and I can imagine that customers are not always, happy. They can be frustrated. They can vent out. There can be all sorts of things. So, how do you keep your teams motivated? And secondly, how do you handle burnout, if any burnout in your team?
I don't think you can avoid right now kind of burnout and pressures on teams. And this is across the board. And I speak to a lot of CS leaders kind of within our space. Because not only our customers are under pressure with kind of their budgets, there are internal budget pressures, and how do we ensure that, we don't burn out the teams with the work that's required. But I think the key is being really transparent and honest with your team as to what you're trying to achieve, bringing them on the journey. We're in a position where we are still relatively, small team. So when we do planning, we can involve everybody. We can be very transparent about the KPIs. Majority of the team work on individual projects. So they may be passionate about, we had a new starter who really wanted to revamp our onboarding. We had somebody who really wanted to change how we do account planning, and really keeping everybody involved and making them feel, and they are very much a big part of the journey, and kind of that delegation of projects really, I think, keeps people motivated and ensures that they're still learning, right? And from a burnout perspective, I think as a business, we need to take some responsibility to understand what is the fact, right? What are some of the tasks that we're doing that actually we shouldn't? Keep challenging ourselves and removing some of the tasks that aren't that impactful. And interesting, this is actually the focus for us for next financial year, is doing a real check-in and assessment of what are the tasks that are not making that much impact, that take a lot of resources from the team, from their day-to-day, causing some of the burnouts, some of the admin, for instance, right? So very often with CS tooling, the team will be like, I have to update all the CRMs. It's very important for me, but the team may feel that it isn't. So we're doing a full stock and check of everything that we do. And I think the key for leadership is to really think about the day-to-day of the team and to get very good at resources planning.
I'd like now to move into the top tools, technology that you are using, and then we can talk about AI now and in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a very timely question for us. So we are in the middle of a big change within some of our tooling. So first, we're actually migrating from one customer success platform to another customer success platform. And we making that shift not just because the new tool is all that much better. It is, but what it allows us to do is restart. Mm-hmm. It allows us to understand what data we bringing in. How do we make our teams more efficient? How we use better technology and tooling to make much more informed decisions about some of the health of our customers, any signs that they're giving us, kind of on their upsells or appetite. We've actually invested in an AI BDR tool, which also, essentially what it does, it surfaces some data as to what the brands are researching to make really decisions for BDRs, which accounts they should target, but also what it does for customer success. It alerts us to know when our brands are, for instance, researching us, right? Or looking at some of our papers. When they are, for instance, looking at some competitor content, for instance, or they researching, for instance, personalization, which could be an upsell to an account. And essentially what that allows the team to do is just be much more streamlined of when to contact, what conversations to have. There are some quick wins, such as prep for your QBRs, prep for calls. Like Sales Navigator has a new feature called Account IQ, which essentially gives you a summary of a given brand's objectives. Right, so you can prep quicker rather than having to go to Google Alerts and do a ton of research. You can use ChatGPT and just put in, I'm prepping for a QBR and have a prompt, give me some top line objectives of the brand. And we're also embarking on a project to surface much more usage data into our decision making. So we have just migrated some of our data warehousing, which give us access to much more data to put into our CRM systems and new dashboards for the team to, again, make them much more efficient, not have to spend as much time trying to look for data in different places, and also make decisions about the usage and health on data rather than always kind of gut instincts or just, for instance, relationship and reporting. And thinking about AI, and this is a very interesting question because being in the space, obviously we've been around for 10 years and I've been at the business for 7 years. Within AI, I don't think we can predict what the world will look like in a year, right? It's such a fast-paced environment. We've never seen governments move this fast within this space. But I read a very interesting article by a guy called Dave Blake, who's a CEO of Client Success. And the article was called Customer Success 5.0, the AI First Era. And in that article, he talks about rather than having specific tools per team. So you'll have a product management tool, right, for the product teams. You'll have a sales CRM tool. You'll have a CS tool. You'll have marketing may used around tooling. And he talks about that the new era of customer success over organizations is to pull all the data into one, right? Consolidate in a fashion that allows us to make much more informed decisions about everything that touches the customer. And that isn't just customer success. How do we understand our data about customers, their life cycle, and make much more informed decisions? And I think what's interesting in this is it'll kind of serve three purposes. It'll provide us with more data as a business. And I also think, going back to the burnout question, it'll also increase, I think, job satisfaction. Working with new tooling reduces admin very often, reduces kind of drag. It helps the team to know new tools that may help them in their career here or careers in the future, right? Help them understand innovation and technology. And also, selfishly, it'll help us all the development, increasing capacity per head, therefore, increasing the ROI of our team and its effectiveness.
Would you like sharing a success story in your customer success journey to finish this podcast, Kasia?
Yeah, sure. And I think a success story is, in some way, really giving the power to the empowering individuals to make decisions within CS of what's right for their customer. I think the key, especially within enterprise, high touch motion, you can't prescribe every process. You can't create a playbook that says, if this happens, do that. And we had a brand who was going through a lot of change their end, a lot of change management kind of in their processes internally and team changes that has impacted some of the adoption of our tool, therefore putting a lot of risk on the adoption for the individual who's managing their account. And what they have done themselves is really dig deep to understand of the changes, and it will ask a lot of questions of what impact this has on the customer. And then they've created some very kind of hands-on curated solutions to really teach each individual within the new scope, and then really increasing the adoption by doing one by one adoption. And you can sometimes, very often, only do that in kind of high touch motions, but that has, because this individual has kind of gone out a little bit of the process to not necessarily train a whole team. They've gone with single individuals. They've done really hands-on changes in change management that has really impacted. We've seen a tremendous impact on the adoption, and really from an account that we thought was highly at risk has really turned it around to a very happy account with a case study who's really now proud of themselves. But essentially the moral of this is really allowing individuals to make the decisions for their accounts that might be individual sometimes to that account to get the outcomes.
Wow, that's for sure. I mean, obviously from your perspective, yeah, customer success is here for quite some time. I don't think AI is going to replace it any day, any soon. Is there anything else you would like to add with our audience, Kasia?
No, I don't think so. I think it's a very interesting space. I think technology is changing a lot. I think the markets are changing a lot. And I think we just have to all kind of work together, be very in tune to the needs of the market, adjust our processes very quickly, reach out to kind of a lot of the communities that are all around, right? Because if you have a problem, doesn't necessarily mean, it probably means somebody else had that problem, probably had solutions to solve that, right? I think the key is really understanding that, you're not on your own. There are a lot of communities out there and different strategies, and also being very humble in a sense of you don't have all the answers, right? And going to the team to help solve any challenges you may have. Your leadership, wider leadership, and other organizations as such.
Thank you so much, Kasia, for sharing these invaluable insights with us. I think you have a wonderful job, and you seem to be working in a very dynamic company, which is embracing technology, embracing the change. I'm sure it presents some challenges, but it must make your job very, very exciting and interesting. So hopefully we will meet again maybe in 6 months' time, and you can share with us the implementation of the new system you are going to use. So thank you so much, Kasia, and hopefully we'll see you soon. And until next time, for our next podcast, I wish you all well.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Catherine, for having me.
You're welcome.